Good day, everyone. My name is Rich Chester, and I'm the Director of Business Intelligence for LPA Software Solutions. I'm happy to be with you today to talk to you about the latest release of IBM Cognos, which is going to be called Cognos Analytics, and it comes out at the end of this year. The agenda for today is to start out with a quick discussion of the notions of bimodal and self-service BI. And then I'll take you into an introduction to the contents of the release Cognos Analytics. We'll then talk about how you might transition from your current version of Cognos 10 over to Cognos Analytics once it's released. And then hopefully there'll be some time for questions and answers at the end. So please do submit any questions that you have throughout the presentation via the chat window. I'll answer as many as I have time for at the end of the webinar. Any that I don't get to on the air, so to speak, I will follow up with you via email afterwards. So ultimately, all the questions you submit will be answered. So with that said, let's get underway. If you attended our webinar on the personal data sets capability that was introduced in Cognos 10.2.2, you know there I introduced this concept from Gartner called bimodal BI. And Gartner's notion around bimodal BI is essentially a coexisting set of tools that provides what we think of as traditional BI. This would typically be a centralized implementation of an enterprise tool that provides the metadata, the governance, and controls to ensure a single version of the truth for everyone that uses the platform, coupled with a collection of tools that would enable end users to be self-directed, to perform their own data discovery, their own exploration, and ideally do so in a way that does not require the intervention or the support of the central business intelligence or traditional BI platform folks. This end user empowerment is what a number of industry analysts are now referring to as self-service BI. So bimodal BI is the existence of both a robust single version of the truth enterprise platform that is doesn't have to be, but is often centrally managed, coupled with self-service BI. Now, self-service BI, according to our friends at Gartner, end users designing, deploying their reports within an approved and supported architecture and tool portfolio. So in other words, this is not about people going maverick and downloading tools off the web or bringing in unsanctioned tools. Self-service business intelligence, from a Gartner perspective, is the ability for end users to leverage a portfolio of tools that is approved and supported by their organization. And they further state that even with these sanctioned tools, these supported tools, as many as 90% of self-service BI initiatives will ultimately fail to provide bona fide insights due specifically to the lack of governance that would often accompany that self-service side of the bimodal implementation. So the bimodal implementation with these tools that are enabling this self-service will not be governed sufficiently in projects that introduce them, so that the majority of them will fail. Now that's, I think, a pretty dire warning about self-service BI. However, Gartner also states that the self-service business intelligence market is going to grow at a rate of 30% a year. In fact, another industry analyst group called KD Nuggets said earlier this year, actually I think it might have been the end of 2014, that they felt that 2015 was going to be the year of self-service BI. So self-service BI is going to be real, is effectively inevitable, but we have to deal with this governance problem if we're going to be successful in deploying self-service BI. And successful in this case, I think, means that end users in a self-empowered mode will actually discover bona fide, true insights that will actually make a significant difference in business results. So it's about the bona fide insights that come from end users discovering through their own data and through their own set of tools designed specifically for them that we're after. That's the goal of self-service BI. Acrotrend is another industry analyst group, and they have said that organizations, CIOs, if you will, have basically three choices relative to self-service BI. So today, a CIO could choose to actually try and stop it, to instantiate policies and procedures that would effectively stop any self-service BI solutions from entering the organization. They could just ignore it in hopes it goes away. But I think, as we've said so far today, self-service BI is what people need, want, and ultimately are going to introduce into your organization. So ignoring it and hoping it will go away is probably a losing strategy. Obviously, the Acrotrend and the other industry pundits and yours truly says that CIOs really need to seek the best of both worlds. They need to have a clear strategy that actually implements bimodal BI, that implements a traditional BI tool that is single version of the truth, is managed sets of data that ensure that the most important KPIs of an organization are always calculated the same way for every user, plus self-service tools that leverage that infrastructure in any way possible, plus give end users unfettered access to their own data sets and the ability to make discoveries without barriers. And that's the key. That's the goal. That's the nirvana of bimodal BI. And that's where I believe over the next 5 years our industry is going. Now, self-service by user group, you might think, well, it's actually quite different. Let's take consumers, folks who are not authoring, who are not actually analysts generating new insights. They're the users of the centrally managed, typically let's call it the enterprise BI tool, the tool that is centrally managed and is providing that single version of the truth through static reports or perhaps through interactive reports, but they're canned. In other words, it's directed BI. As you move down to the spectrum, these are the folks who are creating the dashboards and the infographics. It goes to visualizations beyond a bar chart or a line chart. They're creating ad hoc reports. They're answering questions from the C-level. When the C-level sees a KPI and says, why is this number this number? These creators, our analyst organizations begin here, if you will, are building the ad hoc reports that answer those questions. And so they, to be successful, need less barriers, less impediments to their analysis, and more self-service capabilities. And then finally, to the power user. The power users are those who are going to actually be able to model across multiple data sets, the ability to join data sets and create, if you will, modules of data, lumps of data across disparate things. There's a continuum of users. So it's very important that your bimodal BI solution enable you to expose the capabilities of the tool in the self-service mode in a graduated way, in a way that is controllable to the persona of the user you are hoping to empower. 4 different capabilities that really are important to self-service: ease, agility, and speed, built-in intelligence to guide as we go, so it's not 100% unfettered, especially for that middle group, and trusted. The data, whether I get it from my enterprise tool in the structured prepackaged reports or in the self-service mode, must be solid. So easy, fast, smart, and trusted, that is what we're after. That's the goal of our bimodal BI solution, our self-service implementation. Cognos Analytics is IBM's next release of the Cognos BI tool. It is 100% focused on empowering end users, delivering the first release of Cognos BI that I think is a full and rich feature set specifically designed to empower end users. The release date for Cognos Analytics is targeted to be the end of calendar year 2015. Anything that we saw in the demonstrations and anything, therefore, you'll see me show you in this slide deck is subject to change. There were indeed things that they showed us in the product that they told us outright. We're doing it this way, but this screen is going to change. You'll see some things in the screens that I'm going to show you next that will say coming soon. So the product is still being developed. The whole focus of this release is almost, and this is not IBM's words, this is Rich Chester's words, it's basically taking Cognos 10.2.2 and putting a whole new front end on it. So in other words, all the things you know about how Cognos 10.2.2 works in the background, how you administer it, how you tune it, how you configure it, indeed how you install it and how you upgrade it, are by and large unchanged. What's changed is the front end, is the experience for the end user. It's an experience that is going to be cross-device. So whether you're on the mobile platform, whether you're on a seated browser like IE or Firefox, regardless of the device you're using, the same capabilities exist. So I can write reports with my mouse on my laptop, or I can write reports with my finger on my iPad. It's also going to allow end users that you give the access to do this, the ability to model their own data. In addition, of course, to still being able to leverage the centrally managed and modeled framework packages that we've been using heretofore with Cognos. The entire authoring experience has been rebuilt from a point of view that tries to present the authoring interface in a welcoming and, let's say, non-intimidating fashion. I think those were the words that they used a lot at the conference. There's that report authoring tools, Report Studio and Cognos Workspace Advanced were intimidating. And so the new interface that you'll get a glimpse at today is designed to be unintimidating to all levels of user, and yet robust enough to serve the professional author as well as the casual user. So it's a completely redesigned experience. It is, of course, available on cloud through BI on the Cloud, an offering from Cognos, as well as just like you have it today, where it's installed on your premise. And it incorporates capabilities that were previously only available in Watson Analytics. It delivers what IBM is calling smarter self-service. It's going to dramatically introduce productivity with this completely redesigned experience for both departmental and enterprise reporting. It's going to allow both the professional modelers and end user modelers to be able to craft data sets, data modules that make sense for the analyses they need to do. It's going to give them a report authoring and analysis interface that makes sense, that doesn't require you to be a professional author to get at professional author level capability. And it's going to redefine how we consume reports, both how we go and find the reports we'd like to consume, as well as the whole experience of consumption. And again, I will show you as much of that as I can in this webinar. The thing is, in previous releases, Cognos has done what I would call a traditional beta. In other words, they select organizations, and LPA was typically among them, to give an early version of the software to, for us to install and test and help IBM identify any issues or concerns before it went to the final stages of being packaged to roll out. So under normal circumstances, LPA would have a copy of Cognos Analytics installed on our servers, and I'd be able to demo that for you today. However, with Cognos Analytics, and I suspect with all releases going forward, IBM is doing what they're calling development in the open. Development in the open means that anyone, LPA, and anyone that's listening to this webinar could go to analyticszone.com, click on the Cognos Analytics button, and actually click on a Submit Interest button that is there, and register for access to the software as part of the beta for testing the software, trying it out, getting a feel for it, and really building plans around how you might employ this new release. So when I was at the Insight conference, in the expo hall, there was a product manager who allowed me to sit down at a laptop there and create a bunch of screenshots to share with you and walk you through some of the things that I did. So while it's not a live use of the tool, hopefully you'll find that this is a pretty good approximation of a quick demo that I can share with you. So here is the welcome screen that you receive when you log into Cognos Analytics. So there is no more Cognos connection, if you will, that you log into with where you see tabs with public folders and my folders, and you see a list of folders, and that sort of portal experience is now replaced with this new interface. So you'll notice there is some sample to explore, and in future releases this will be customizable. From what they told me in this very first release at the end of the year, this will be static, but ultimately you'll be able to add your own sample content here on the welcome screen. But you can replace the welcome screen with one of your own reports. So it's really about, am I going to be able to modify the contents of this specific screen that's delayed? But anyway, you land on a welcome screen. You log in. You have access to search, and search has been greatly improved. Everything is indexed as it's created. So there's not a scheduled index job like there is in Cognos 10 that indexes things on some periodic basis that you specify when you schedule a job. Instead, their search is indexing everything as it's built, and that includes indexing things like metadata and packages. So that's a big improvement in overall search. My content is the new name for my folders. So this is still a private area to the user where they store their objects. It's just that the number of objects and the type of objects I might store has changed. Certainly it still includes folders and reports, but it also includes things like new dashboards with a new dashboarding tool that is very much like the Assemble capability in Watson Analytics, if you've had a chance to look at that. Also uploaded files and so on. You'll see more in a moment. Team content here on the left, that is the new name for public folders. They said a couple of times at the conference, they weren't really public anyway. They were always organized for teams and not sort of everybody. So we called it what it is. It's team content. Recent is access to your recently used reports. Down on the lower left, you've got this new button, an upload files button, and a notifications button. Notifications, upload files, and new. I'm going to actually see. You'll see a number of things in the screenshots around. But let's go. So let's get started. And what I did is I essentially decided to go ahead and run a report. So to do so, I clicked on the search button, and I looked for the words sales growth. I typed in sales growth, and I said, show me what's out there in terms of sales growth. And the tool returned all of these objects that are out there that I have access to. When I click the filter button, I get to say what type of things you can search. So I only searched reports and dashboards. And it'll search reports, stored outputs. It will also search active reports, not just regular reports, as well as any dashboards that I'd created. And I found this sales growth year over year. It was the first hit, and I clicked on it to run it. So here is the sales growth report that I have run. Now, the sales growth report is consumption experience is one of the very new and very interesting features of Cognos Analytics. When I consume, I can also do some authoring. So, for example, when I took the screenshot, I had clicked on this column here in this list. And when I clicked on it, a toolbar came up. So this is what's called an interactive report. There's non-interactive reports and interactive reports. I happen to run one that is interactive. And interactive reports, when you click on the objects on them, give you, as a consumer, the ability to filter, to sort, to add new summaries, to add new calculations, and the types of features and functions you get in the toolbar depend on what you've clicked on. But the notion here is that not only am I consuming, but I also have the option to personalize. Now, I am authoring from the sense that anything I do, any calculation I add, any sort I change, if I save it and I have access to overwrite this report, everyone will get the updated version. So it's like I've made a change with a reporting tool. Thing is, I haven't opened a reporting tool. I've opened the report, and as I consume it, I can personalize it. And if I don't have access to override it, but the personalizations are something that I'd like to keep, I can save this updated copy in my content area. Now, what I wanted to do is I wanted to edit the report. I wanted to move from the consumption experience to the full authoring experience. And to do so, you click on this pencil up at the top. Now, when you click on that pencil, you'll notice that you get a new collection of menu options here on the left. You did not actually get a whole lot of difference in terms of the look of the report. It's still being consumed, isn't it? Right? It's showing you data. Those of you who are familiar with Cognos Workspace Advanced, you will know this as I'm authoring in preview mode. And that's exactly what this new tool allows you to do if you like. It authors in preview mode. As you'll see in a moment, it also will let you author in page structure as well as in page design mode. And you notice that now the items that are available to me on the toolbar versus when I was consuming, now the items in the toolbar are richer. There's more of them because I'm now in full-blown authoring mode. Again, only people who I've given access to this mode could be able to click the pencil. I happen to have access to, I wasn't an administrator, but I was a full-on author in the environment I was able to sign on to. So, clicked on the pencil, I'm now in edit mode. Now you see a data toolbox navigate. This replaces Report Studio and Cognos Workspace Advanced. Those tools do not exist in this release. Instead, this tool exists and it contains everything those tools have. It's a matter, though, of not showing you everything the tool can do all at once, which was probably the biggest negative comment that you might make about the Report Studio tool, is everything was in your face, if you will. Here, what you need, you can slide out by clicking a button and exposing what you need when you need it. So first of all, I click on data, and that is what exposes my package. So this is the Great Outdoors data warehouse analysis data, the same sample data that we've had in Cognos for a good long time. So when you click on data, you get to your model. Now notice this is a dimensional model. So I have all those dimensional buttons that I have worked with in Report Studio and CWA before. So the two different ways to view the metadata, am I creating sets, what happens when I drag over a single member. So that's all there under this data item. So again, it's all there, it's just not in your face. Click on the toolbox and you'll see that all the tools that we're used to in Report Studio are here. They're organized into collections, which is kind of nice. You can change that organization. You can pin items to the top that are your favorites. But ultimately, the toolbox is the toolbox. It's the toolbox that we're used to. And so here you would just drag new tools onto your report page and lay out your report page. Navigate is where all of the explorers went. So when you click on Navigate, you'll find yourself with the Page Explorer, there's the Query Explorer, the Condition Explorer, the tabs for your active report variables, because yes, in this interface you also create active reports. All of it's there under Navigate. So all the Explorer things are available to you under Navigate. Moving from page design to page preview to page structure is easy. You just have to click the button that exposes those items. So again, I am in page preview mode, so I'm authoring while I see data. I don't have to be, I could switch over to page design or page structure and author without seeing data, more like Report Studio than Cognos Workspace Advanced. You see they've been pulled together here into a single user interface. Now you might ask, well, where's my property sheets? Well, they're here. You just have to expose them through the property button. And then out will come all of the properties that you're used to having in Report Studio. So they're here. They're just not visible until you need them by clicking on the button here. And then ultimately, there's this More button. And this More button is where I can do a couple of things. Earlier, I told you you could replace the welcome screen with something else as your home screen, and this is where you would do that. So I've got this report that I can make this report my home. I could also undo that and reset my home to the welcome screen. And then there's this notion of subscribe. If I would like to subscribe to this report, so every time there's a new version, I am notified here in the lower left that there is a new version. I click subscribe, up would come what is essentially the schedule report interface. So this is sort of personally scheduling this report and then being notified later when it's run and has saved a new output for me to look at. I did not happen to catch a screenshot of the subscribe feature. Now, this middle button here, this is sort of your navigation of what's open. So I was on the welcome screen, and this is how you can get back home, is always at the top of this list here. And you see I entered this report. Now, if I edited 7 or 10 reports, right, they'd all be listed here. Now, the way to close one is you click this little minus sign here, and it removes it from this list. So this list allows you to have multiple objects open, dashboards, and reports and whatnot. And then you can close them by navigating into this button and clicking on it. Okay. Now I decided that fine, I can edit an existing report. Let me actually start a brand new report and just see what that experience is like. So I clicked on new. I chose report. Up popped a collection of templates. Now you notice this is not list crosstab chart templates. These are layouts, if you will. And you notice there's a themes thing here as well. So the notion of building a list report is replaced with I'm building a report with this sort of layout. And these layouts are managed by you. They just live in a folder. And if you want just a plain old, I want to build me a list report, and you want that sort of template, you can build that template. But you could also build a bunch of other templates. And you just can manage them by placing them in a folder. So it used to be to get the template list when Report Studio or Cognos Workspace Advanced launched to change. You had to edit XML. You don't have to edit XML anymore. You just have to save a template to a folder. Same with a theme. So I picked a template. And I did navigate and pick a model. I just didn't happen to capture a screenshot of that. Sorry about that. When I got back, it wasn't there. But I did navigate and pick a package. And when I picked the package, I'm able now to create objects. Now in this layout, right, I specified when we created the layout, and Cognos comes with these layouts and you can create more, where you're going to put data objects. And so you see these little pluses that are here. You click a plus, and out drops the major data objects you want. And then you just click on the object you want. Click a list. Click a crosstab. Click a chart. If you click on a chart, you get the same chart library that you have in Cognos 10. If you click on visualization, you get access to the visualizations, the array visualizations that you've uploaded to your library. If you click on a list or a crosstab or a map, you get exactly what you're used to in 10.2.2. The interface has changed. What's behind the interface hasn't. Okay? And then once I did that, for all intents and purposes, I was authoring a report just like I used to, using all the capabilities that I've already shown you screenshots for when I was editing the report that I ran. Also note that you're still given the pop-up to name your objects and either pick to reuse a query or name your new query. So that hasn't changed from the tools in 10.2.2, even though this interface, I think you'll agree, is different than it was before. So enough about authoring reports. Let's talk about this notion of uploading files. So the essence of self-service BI is to have me be able to use enterprise data, the managed data like in the packages like I just did with the report, but in addition, be able to provide my own data sets and be able to do analyses with those data sets. And the way that we do that in Cognos Analytics is we simply upload the files that we have access to that we would like to analyze. We upload them to Cognos. It'll give you a standard browse to the file dialog. You pick the file in whatever folder it is. It uploads it to the Cognos server. If you are familiar with the 10.2.2 feature called personal data sets, you'll know in 10.2.2 to upload a file, to be able to analyze on it, you would need a DB2 database to house that file. That is not true in Cognos Analytics. You do not need a DB2 database. The files you upload are managed for you. They become part of your content, but they do not require a DB2 database on the back end. Now, once you've uploaded a file, you could actually use that file right away to create a dashboard. But you could also take that file and combine it with other data in the enterprise. And that's what I'm going to show you now. So I've uploaded some files in this point. So I uploaded some time data, I uploaded some sales data. And what I want to do is I had two files and I want to join those two files so I can write a report from the two files, not just from one file. So I'm going to create a new data module. And yes, my friends, I am modeling as an end user. That's what this tool is. This does not replace Framework Manager. That's still there exactly as you know it today. But I am modeling even so. So I go into the modeling tool. It lets me look at my uploaded files. It lets me look at data servers. These are your data source connections that this user has access to. And then data modules, the notion here is I might want to actually add to an existing module. So I'm creating a new module, but perhaps I want to start with a module that's already available to me and add to it. That's also possible here. I clicked on uploaded files. At the time I did this, I hadn't uploaded that time file yet, so I just had the two other files I uploaded. I clicked the checkbox on both of these, and they came over here as selected data sources. So there's file 1, there's file 2. I decided, now that I picked the data sources, I pulled over what I wanted to use from the data sources. So you pick the data sources, they become available to you, and then you pick and choose the pieces you want from your data sources. And I happen to just pick everything in them. So I just dragged both CSVs over. So they're both represented here. And you see they're not joined. They're two independent files. So what I wanted to do is create a join so that I could write a report that combined data from both of these files I uploaded. So I clicked on the two columns that I'm going to use in my join. Click, control click, right click, click on join. Now this is an example of a feature that will be in the end product, but this is a temporary interface. So this interface will absolutely change, but the basic notion behind this interface will not change. And that is, we're not going to present end users with 0.1 or 1.n, pick a cardinality type dialog. We're going to present them with English. And they're going to read the English and pick the join that makes sense relative to the English. So again, this is not for people who create entity relationship diagrams and understand 1.ends. This is for end users who understand English. So all throughout this, it's about not being jargonized. It's about really empowering end users who are not necessarily trained as IT people. And this is just one example of how they've done that. So while the interface will change, the heuristic won't. English, not chicken feet or 1.n type notation. Once you've done that, you can save that data module. Now what I did is I said, all right, so that's cool. I did it with uploaded files. That's fine. What does it look like when I do it with data sources? When I go after, I just went after Go Sales. The other thing is there's this cool feature in the data module tool called intent-based modeling. Intent-based modeling. And I wanted to give that a go while I was on the system. So this is what I did. I went and I said, let me create a new data module. I picked data servers. I picked this data source connection. And then I went into that data source connection and I clicked on the schemas that I wanted to use. And I made those my selected sources. You with me? So I said, let's do a new data module. I'm going to use data servers. Here's the connection. Here's the schemas. They're now my selected sources. Now, instead of dragging things here into the middle pane that I want to use, instead, I'm using this intent tab. And in it, I said my intent is to analyze sales revenue employee. I typed sales revenue employee. Turns out I could have typed sales revenue by employee over time. I can type in any sort of sentence and click go. And what the tool will do is it'll examine the data sources, it'll examine my intent, and it will propose a model. So examining my data sources and my 3 words, it proposed that these are the objects that belong in my model to be able to analyze sales revenue employee. Now you can choose to go with the proposal, or you can choose to change your intent until you see stuff here that strikes you as best. You click add the proposal, and you see that proposal comes over here now in the middle. That's in lieu of dragging it over myself, right? And here the tool is giving me guidance as opposed to me having to be expert enough to pick exactly from the data sources. So it came over, and then here's the metadata that came from the database for the selected items. Now, once you're here, you absolutely can tweak and change. And so I did tweak and change. I brought over some new things. I removed some things. I joined order header to employee because that join is not in the database. So I can do all of that. Now, is that a level of sophistication for me that maybe is different from a casual end user? Yes, it is. So, each person is going to be able to use this in a different way with different uh, um, levels of sophistication. However, everyone can use this that you give access to this capability. So I created let's say, a little more sophisticated model directly from data sources through a web interface by using intent. I would like to model around this topic, and it gave me a proposal that I could then tweak and perfect. So that's this modeling thing. So a data module is the result of this online modeling in a similar fashion, I suppose, as a package is the result of framework modeling. Um, Different metadata, whole different design, if you will, to the metadata, different level of capability, but available to the end user. And then I'm going to show you just quickly this notion of a new dashboard. So this dashboard stuff is directly from the Assemble feature in Watson. And I'm running a little late, so I'm gonna speed up a little bit if that's even at all possible. So I click on New. I clicked on a layout of the dashboard. So I'm going to do a tab dashboard, and I picked Freeform when I did this. But as you see, there's lots of ways you can set up a predefined layout if you like. And of course, this is all configurable. I went with Freeform for mine. I clicked on this plus to pick a data source to build my dashboard from. And I picked on that module I just built with the intent-based modeling. So here I'm not authoring a report, I'm authoring a dashboard. Now, those of us who are familiar with Cognos Workspace may be expecting that now I'm going to pick reports and pull objects in from those reports, but that's not what this tool does, as you'll see in a sec. So I picked the model I just created. In that model, I dragged over, I didn't show it in a screenshot, I simply dragged over and dropped onto the palette product type. So you might recognize these as the sample product types in the Go Sales database. And it built this unique list of product types for me. The next thing I did was I found country in the model. I did the same thing. I dragged country over, and now I've got two lists. Not particularly impressive yet. Note I do have a set of things I can do, including delete this thing and edit this thing, but that's not the cool part. Here's the cool part. In the model, I then found sales target. And I dragged over sales target. I dropped it on top of this list of countries. And that's what the tool did. The tool created for me a bar chart. It created the bar chart because it looked at country, it looked at sales target, and it made a decision about that data that said this is the best way to express it. Now, that is something I can change. This button down here would allow me to change it to any chart in the chart library, as well as some other options. But it is intelligently interpreting the data I drop and is presenting a visualization of that data that matches the data and what it knows about the data from the data module I picked. So I no longer have to author reports to create a dashboard. I simply have to have access to data, and the tool will help me create a dashboard simply by allowing me to drag it and drop it onto the canvas. Then I clicked over here on the list of product types, and I clicked on climbing accessories, and automatically this widget was filtered. And by the way, if I clicked on France, it would actually filter this widget with France. And ultimately what I'd get is a list of product types that had been sold in France. So click on a product type, filter here, click on a country, filter here. So all of the widgets that it creates when I drop items onto this dashboard are automatically connected to each other. So that's your quick glimpse into the contents of the new release, this new front end to Cognos BI that they're now calling Cognos Analytics. So the next set of slides are about, all right, I've been there, I like it. Now I want to go there. What's in, what's out, what changes, what doesn't change? How do I get there from Cognos 10? So Cognos Connection is for all of the features I just showed you, replaced with this new web experience. Common across all devices. It has that smart search. That search is context sensitive, so it searches the right things at the right times. It gives you that recently used list. And of course, it gives you access to create new objects as well as to explore the objects that you've stored either in your My Content or in your Team Content. That welcome screen has changed, so no longer are you going to have this welcome screen, you're going to have this welcome screen. It is going to, and it was not part of the tool when I played with it. So this is, again, the tool is still under development. But the notion is, what the stated objective is, there's no user guide. That the use of the interface is going to include coaching to guide users. And so they're going to give you things called coach marks that are intended to guide you to do the things that you need to do based on what you've previously done. Have not seen it in use, but their stated objective when I chatted with product management is ideally there is no user guide for this interface because you don't need one. So we'll see how close they come to that. That'll be these coach marks will be new to all of us. Perhaps when they open up the development in the open, we'll see those in the release that's there. Now, this navigation is very different than the click on a folder, see the contents of the folder that we're used to. You see, when I click on this folder, the way the navigation works is it slides out a new pane. And if I click on a folder in that new pane, it slides out a third pane. Now, 3 panes are all that'll ever be visible at a time. So if I clicked on a folder here, it wouldn't draw a 4th pane. It would actually remove the first pane, move these 2 over, and give me a 3rd pane. So the maximum I see is 3, and there'd be a little arrow over here so I could get back to previous panes. But this slide out is the new navigation heuristic in the portal as opposed to the one we're used to in the Cognos connection. This is the default mode. There is another mode. It's called Wide View. If you click on this button here, you'll take this set of items and you'll put it into Wide View. Now, Wide View is actually a lot like what we see in the Cognos connection. It'll give me the list. There's with right click, I can do a number of things. I get access to the copy and paste and cut functionality here. I get access to the property functionality here, right? So I have 2 modes to navigate. I've got wide view and I've got this sliding panel view. New names for things. So the search replaces the Go search that was baked into Cognos 10. My content instead of my folders, team content instead of public folders, and then recent is new. It's just keeping track of where I've been so that if I want to get back there quickly, I can. Now, if you're still using Cognos 8 portal pages and portal tabs, they will remain after upgrade. In other words, the portal pages will still be there. When you click on them, so when you come to a portal page in your list and you click on it, it will launch in a new browser tab. It is not integrated into the new interface, so it'll launch outside of the interface. They can no longer be set as your home. You cannot create them as tabs anymore. While you can edit the ones that are there when you upgrade, you can't create new ones after you upgrade. Okay, so when you created portal pages and portal tabs in the past, they will come along for the ride, and then literally everything does, because remember, this is still 10.2.2 by and large behind the new interface. So the upgrade will bring along everything, but then the interface will limit what you can do with it after it's been brought along. And portal tabs will actually be shown as shortcuts and open up in a separate tab, and they won't be part of the main interface. Other changes, you used to be able to assign a point in the public folders for people to land in via an XML change. That is not part of this release. There's no XML file to change to give users a different root folder. The home screen defaults to the welcome screen. Themes, this is branding the whole portal. notion, while you can still brand this portal, there is no theme designer. You edit an XML file. Now, when in the Q&A in the session I was at, people asked, well, are you going to do a theme designer? And what they said is probably not, because to brand this interface is very, very simple. In other words, this XML file is not large or complex, so you are going to find that just editing the XML file should get you where you've got to go, and you don't need a tool like Theme Designer. And we already talked about the Go Search being replaced with the new search engine that auto-indexes everything. You saw a lot of the authoring changes. Ultimately, though, behind it is the report service that understands Report Studio reports, that all the reports are saved in XML, and it's the same old XML we're used to editing with Report Studio and Cognos Workspace Advanced. So what's behind the interface hasn't changed. How you edit the XML through the interface is different. The XML spec is the same. User interface profiles that were introduced in 10.2.2, where you could create a customized Workspace Advanced profile or a customized Report Studio profile, are not part of Cognos Analytics. Because they have taken and redesigned the entire report experience, they believe that this profiling capability is not germane to the new interface. Report Studio templates and themes are now in a folder. Talked to you about that already. No new security options for the authoring tool. What that means is when you go to the capabilities in Report Studio, you can still secure HTML, you can still secure who can use SQL, who can burst. Nothing's new in there. They're all the same ones that were there. All the same output formats you're used to are still there. No new ones have been introduced. And active reports are built in the same interface. And the process for building them, no different than it was. How objects interact with each other, you use variables, how you use DEX, exactly the same as it was in previous releases. From a legacy studio perspective, this is a big deal. The announcement with 10.2.2 is it would be the last release that included a number of studios, including Query and Analysis Studio. The Cognos Analytics release will still include these tools. So these tools are not being retired with Cognos Analytics as previously announced. They will launch in a separate browser tab. They're not integrated in the new interface, but they will be there. So the Query and Analysis Studio migration that we were led to believe would be required for this release is not required for this release. While I still believe that you're going to want to migrate, you have more time. The 10.2.2 interfaces for Report Studio and CWA are not available in Cognos Analytics. What that means is the ones you created will not upgrade. So earlier I said everything will upgrade, and I guess I was overstating it a bit. If you created a bunch of profiles, when you upgrade, you will not have access to those profiles because you won't have access to Report Studio or CWA. The only way you'll be able to author is through that new interface. The Office Connection Cafe, not changed at all. They're still exactly the same as they were, and will work with this release, is what they've told me. Now, your existing reports, when they upgrade, will upgrade in the non-interactive mode. So you remember when I clicked on a column in consumption of the report and I got a toolbar? That's because this report was set to with the property of interactive. All new reports built with the new interface, that's the default property. All upgraded reports, the default is that it is not interactive. It is just a property, however. So any upgraded report, I can flip that to interactive. Any new report I write, I can flip it to non-interactive. Interactive mode will remove all JavaScript, and that includes JavaScript that uses the prompt API. If you are using a non-interactive report and you've upgraded and it's using JavaScript and the prompt API, it will work because it will launch in the Cognos viewer that is part of 10.2.2. So it's not going to launch in the new viewer that's interactive. It's going to launch in the non-interactive viewer, which is the same Cognos viewer that is part of 10.2.2. Cognos Workspace is still part of the tool, but again, not integrated into the new interface. Fully functional. You can edit and create new workspaces. However, you cannot set them as your home. If you've used Cognos Workspace, you know that you used to be able to edit widgets in the Cognos Workspace Advanced interface. And with 10.2.2, they gave you the ability to actually create widgets from scratch in Cognos Workspace using Cognos Workspace Advanced. Those capabilities have been removed because Cognos Workspace Advanced no longer exists. right? We've got the new report interface, not CWA or Report Studio. So the only thing that's really missing now from the workspaces is the do more and the ability to use Cognos Workspace Advanced, but they are not integrated into the new portal. Administration is identical. Nothing has changed with the full-fledged administration tool. However, not available at the time I was on the system, but part of the release, they believe, will be a new departmental administrator function that will give some basic administration capabilities to those end users you wish to have those capabilities. Again, you are in control of who gets them. If you give an end user a departmental administration role, they must have an administrator license. That was mentioned at the conference, so no different than the license you need for the full-fledged administration is what they said. The My Datasets functionality, this is the upload on my files. They get stored in the DB2 table, and I can then write reports against that DB2 table. All the reports that you've written against them will work. However, you cannot update the data that's in those DB2 tables. So the upload files capability that I talked about in the screenshots is what replaces all of this. So while you can still use the reports against the data you uploaded before you upgraded, you can no longer change that data after you upgrade. But the new uploaded files capability does not require DB2. They're actually stored on the file system on the Cognos server. Framework Manager is the same. CQM, DQM, Dynamic Cubes and Cube Designer, PowerPlay, Transformer, absolutely no changes in the release. The same versions that you have in 10.2.2. From an infrastructure perspective, they have removed the need to configure a gateway. So the configuration, normally when you run setup in Windows, right, the setup is the easy part. Then you have to go and manually configure IIS to use the gateway. There is no more gateway in this new interface, and therefore configuration and installation will be simpler. They intend to replace all SOAP API for you SDK programmers out there and you external integrators. They do plan to replace all of the SOAP with REST, but they have not yet done it. Indeed, in this next release, the end of year release, none of the new capabilities are available to you through SDK or URLs. So the ability to embed this new interface in a third-party portal to interact with this interface through the SDK programmatically, not part of this release. It's targeted for the release afterwards. So not this December release, the one coming later. Rave, similarly, is unchanged in this release. However, Rave 2 is under development, and the way it looks right now, they'll be flipping from this viz.json approach to visualizations over to D3, which is a JavaScript-based approach, and there's thousands and thousands of D3 objects out there already. So no committed data as to when that will come out. They were hoping it would be the release after this one, but there's no commitment there. Lifecycle Manager, no difference. Authorization, authentication, the different kinds of sources of usernames and passwords hasn't changed. How you give a person access to capabilities, no change at all. Package-based drill-throughs, same as it was. Upgrade process, same as it was, no difference in how you upgrade from 10.2.1 to 10.2.2. How you go from your 10 to Cognos Analytics, same process. So with that, I will try to answer a couple of questions, but I know I don't have a lot of time left. Again, any question you've submitted, I will answer. So the first question is, will Framework Manager packages be available for dashboards? So you noticed when I showed you the screenshot for dashboards that the sources that I could use for dashboards did not include Framework Manager packages. That is correct. So the dashboard tool will use data modules. It'll let you use uploaded files directly, but it won't use Framework Manager packages in this release. When I talked to the product manager about Framework Manager packages and this new release, they said certainly they're usable for creating new reports in there, but you can't use them in creating new data modules. So I can't use them as the start of a data module or to add to 3 things I've uploaded through the data module in this release, nor can I use them directly to source one of the new dashboards. They are looking for that to happen in the release after this first release. So it's coming, it's just not in this first release. But certainly everything that we've got in terms of packages for actually creating new reports with the report tool, that all still works. In the new navigation, will it still allow me to hide packages with the XML? Oh, I see. So the question is this. A lot of us have edited our XML up on the server to hide objects where we've just got execute or just got traverse on it. And this is a way for me to have the packages in the portal but not have my users who are not authors see those packages in the portal. And that's an XML change. It's a great story. I'm told I'm out of time. I apologize for not getting to more questions, but hopefully you found the information valuable, even though I wasn't able to give you a live demo. It's been my pleasure to be with you today. I will absolutely answer all the questions I can after this webinar and get back to you via email. Again, I'm Rich Chester with LPA Software Solutions. Thank you so much. We'll see you at the next webinar. Bye-bye.